Well, we're joined now by Hoshyar Zebari, who is an Iraqi Kurdish politician who served as Deputy Prime Minister, former Foreign Minister and former Minister of Finance. Mr. Zebari, thank you very much for joining us on Arabiya English. I would like to start by asking you about a story.
Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. There's a story that's caused quite a lot of confusion in Iraq and beyond because Hezbollah and the Houthis have both found themselves on an official list of terrorist organizations. Can we be sure this was an error?
Well, Tom, thank you for having me on your program on Arabiya English. In fact, this was a big embarrassment to the government because the official Iraqi Gazette is the official document of the Iraqi government, the parliament, all the major decisions. That's a record. And this has been going on, this investigation, for years, I would say, not months. And since last November, actually, the commission that was assigned to identify or freeze the assets of the terrorist groups have made a list of names, including Hezbollah and the Houthi. And it was published publicly. And only today the government realized that there has been a mistake. But really, I think it was a political embarrassment for the government. And they tried through the Central Bank of Iraq to correct that error, as they said, to remove them again from the Gazette. But this shows really the working of the government, the caretaking government at the moment after the election, is very chaotic. And honestly, it raised many eyebrows about the efficiency of our government.
Okay, Mr. Zebari, we're saying this is an administrative error. That seems to be the official line as well. But let's talk about what that error signifies, because we're talking here about two organizations, Hezbollah and the Houthis, that are real pillars of Tehran's regional influence. And it's exactly what Washington would have loved to see those two on Iraq's list of terror organizations, no doubt. What is stopping Iraq from turning the page and turning their back on Iranian influence?
Well, it shows the influence very clearly and transparently. And also the government is heavily influenced by armed militias, by PMF, by those who are aligned with them. They host their offices in Baghdad. They support them materially, financially, politically. But honestly, it shows the bias of the government looking at these groups. And I think the original government commission has done their professional work to identify or to freeze the assets of these terrorists who were involved in terrorist actions. But lately, the government realized that these should not be included in the list because of the ideological alliances with each other. So they issued an order, you see, to change the list or to remove it. By law, they have to issue another legislation to change the official Gazette record, but they did it unilaterally. So honestly, it was a mess up. It was great confusion, erratic decisions. I mean, these decisions that are published in the official Gazette has to be considered legally, politically, structurally, because the word is final. It's the law of the land after it's being published in Al-Waqaya Al-Iraqiyya, or the official Iraqi events magazine. So really it shows you a great deal of confusion, unfortunately.
All right, and you're giving us the impression that you believe there is considerable Iranian involvement in Iraqi affairs. And I'd like to ask your opinion. How do you think Iraq's leadership should balance relationships with Washington on the one hand, Tehran on the other? Does it have to choose, or can it have both?
Well, first and foremost, Iraq has to act or to behave as a sovereign, independent government. And it takes Iraqi interest as a first priority, and not to look over its shoulder left or right. Yes, there is Iranian influence for historical, cultural, geographical, regional, so nobody is against undermining Iraq relations with Iran. The United States also is an effective international factor. It has a history, a legacy in Iraq, and also it is a major actor actually in the region. So how to balance your act between these two contending competitors on Iraq would depend on an independent, sovereign, nationalist Iraqi leaders that really sometimes it should act according to its own interest, not to look for excuses or to be biased to one side against the other. This is Iraq's dilemma, unfortunately. Iraq's foreign policy dilemma also, how to act as a sovereign state, an independent, credible state in the region, in the world. And on the other hand, it has so many non-state actors who are influencing the direction of its policy.
Right, and you're making it sound a bit like the case in Lebanon, where the Trump administration has made these demands.
Well, there are
leadership.
similarities.
Right.
There are similarities.
Tell us about that.
There are similarities, but the situation in Iraq is much deeper. You have one Hezbollah in Lebanon. You have dozens of Hezbollah in Iraq.
And President Trump's special envoy for Syria, Tom Barrack, was in Baghdad at the weekend. I mean, he brought quite a lot of messages with him. And according to reports, one of the things he said was that there was going to be a new and imminent IDF, so Israeli operation against Hezbollah. And I'm wondering if he's telling his hosts in Baghdad that to try to change their calculations with regards to their relationship with Iran and groups like Hezbollah.
Well, there is a great deal of goodwill toward Iraqi government by the Gulf state, by the Arab countries, its neighbors, the international community, the United States, really to keep Iraq out of the regional escalations or conflict. And the Iraqi government, to its credit, I think, has done some good work recently to keep the country away from Israeli-Iranian conflict or confrontations, or not to be indulged in this regional conflict. But there are times that you have to make decisions. Where do you stand? What is the best interest of yours? The visits of Tom Barrack, who is the envoy, the ambassador to Turkey, and the envoy of President Trump to Syria and Lebanon, I think was very significant to carry this message personally to the Iraqi leadership, to stay away from Hezbollah in Lebanon in terms of financing whatsoever, not to be involved in any regional escalation. If you do, then the United States has its options. It may lift its embargo or its veto on the Israelis not to attack the PMF. This is what we heard from the media personally. We are not at those meetings, but I think his message was loud and clear that Iraq should be neutral, should look after itself, should expedite its work to form its new government after the elections, and not to be involved in any foreign adventures.
Right, and Tom Barrack was very clear about that. He said that if Iraqi factions,
Yes.
and we can assume he's talking about groups that might be sympathetic to Hezbollah. If any of those groups in Iraq interfere in any way in supporting Hezbollah, then they will be attacked. That would mean Iraq comes under attack from the United States. How seriously do you think the administration in Baghdad takes a warning like that?
I think the administration is very serious. As you know, President Trump has this peace plan for Gaza. He has invested a great deal of work, of time, and really they don't want this process to be derailed, or the focus should be turned into other issues. And Iraqi rule really should be neutral here, should not be engaged or involved for further escalation. I think the timing of his visit, don't forget that President Trump has a special envoy now to Iraq, Mark Savaya, who has not come yet, but to send Tom Barak to Baghdad and to deliver this message means the issue is very serious. Depends on some hard intelligence. And there may be such moves by some uncontrolled militias, you see, to put themselves in the new fray that it's emerging.
I mean, there are so many examples from the last 12 months in the world of geopolitics that make me question why Iraq would want to maintain strong ties with Iran. Look at what happened to Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Look at what happened to Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon. Look at what happened to the Houthis. And look at the dire economic situation in Iran. And you turn on the tap in Tehran, and water might or might not come out of that tap. And I'm wondering myself, what's the attraction of staying aligned to Iran? And given the very likely issue of confronting the Trump administration, which would be a mistake, wouldn't it?
Well, really, I'm not in the government, Tom, anymore, so as an analyst, I can speak. You should ask this question to the Prime Minister or some government ministers. But I think the connection is more ideological, religious, sectarian for this association. Iran is a very important country. It's a strong neighbor of Iraq. Historically, we have a legacy of conflict, of wars, of relations. The longest border, the Shia in Iran, in Iraq have close intimacy and connection. There are cultural, social connection. But Iraq should act again as an independent, sovereign country to look after the interests of its people first, and also to deal with the international community, with its neighbor, based on mutual respect, mutual interest. So really, if I couldn't answer your question, I may refer you to some government officials, you see, to speak why this reliance or dependence on Iran.
Let me ask you, Mr. Zebari, about some events a bit closer to where you are now in Erbil, because last week there was a drone attack on the Khor gas field, which is in the Kurdish region of Iraq. Who is believed to have been behind that?
Yes, that was a very, very serious attack on our infrastructure, on our gas and oil security. This was one of the largest gas fields in Iraq, and it was supplying gas for electricity for the entire region, and not only for Iraqi Kurdistan, which the government have succeeded in implementing a program of electrification of 24 hours for every household. And also it's providing electricity to Iraqi provinces, to Mosul, to Tikrit, to Diyala. So this attack on this gas field, which is run by one of the Emirati companies was a real threat to the very existence of the development or the progress in the region. I think many people, maybe in the South or the government failures, felt jealous about this progress and they want to stop it. But it has definitely some ramification, regional, internal. The government assigned a commission to investigate by the Interior Minister, the Chief of Intelligence, the Interior Minister of Kurdistan. And I saw their report today. It was very disappointing. They failed to name the culprits, the perpetrators. They gave some general indication where these drones or rockets have come from, but they failed, in fact, to find out or to identify the perpetrators of this attack. And this is the 11th attack on that field. In fact, it wasn't the first, but it was serious because they did good homework to target the condensed storages of the gas. And we, following that, we asked our allies, the international community, the United States, to help us to provide some anti-drones, anti-rocket security system for our critical infrastructure. I hope they would respond positively because this really undermines investment, prosperity, which everybody calls for in the region nowadays. This is a direct challenge to that philosophy or policy that many countries pursue.
Okay, the United States has said it's going to open, well, it is opening a large consulate in Erbil, an enormous piece of real estate. And I'm wondering whether that provides your region with an added sense of reassurance. What are your thoughts?
I attended the opening of the consulate yesterday. There was a big ceremony, and in fact, it was very impressive. It was one of the largest consulates, not only in the region, but maybe in the world. That was a sign of U.S. commitment for security, for continued presence in the region, and the shared value between the Kurdistan region people and the United States. I think they have made an excellent investment. Over 100 million were invested in that building. But it is a testimony to the close friendship between the people of Kurdistan and the United States. So it was very emotional, to be honest with you. And we toured the compound. It was very impressive in terms of architecture, of security, of the space. And we were very pleased that this has been ongoing process of building this consulate since 2018, but it stands as a symbol of friendship.
As we bring our conversation to a conclusion, you mentioned a little earlier on President Trump's envoy to Iraq, Mark Savaya. One of the things he said on Twitter in the last few hours, he said Iraq could play an influential role in the region if it can shake off these unofficial powers that operate in the country. He's talking about the Iranian groups we're talking about. He says Iraq stands at a critical crossroads. And I want to ask you, Mr. Zebari, which way do you think Iraq is going to turn?
Well, I think Mark Savaya has been very straight, very honest, and expressing or representing the policy of President Trump, of the new administration. He hasn't resumed his duties yet. He has been on unofficial visits to Iraq, but we expect him to visit the country soon and to convey his messages directly to the Iraqi leaders. This is a very important development. It shows that the president himself is paying more attention to Iraq. As a former foreign minister, the longest serving foreign minister, I understand that Iraq can play a far more important role in regional security and stability, and a partner with its Gulf neighbors, with its neighbor, with the international community, provided it follow a sovereign, independent, Iraqi nationalist policy toward the international community. And what Mark Savaya highlighted is really the foreign influence, the presence of non-state actors who are directing the policies, the foreign policies, who are obstructing progress. I think he has identified the core reason for Iraqi regress in playing that regional role.
Okay, and just lastly, one very quick final question I wanted to ask you. The Iraqi Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, has nominated President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Has that generated lots of discussion in Iraq?
Well, it has generated a great deal of discussion and criticism of Sudani. The timing couldn't have been worse for him. He's a nominee for a prime minister for a second term, and this would be used by his rivals or his competitors. How could you do that? And President Trump was the person who killed our leader, Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, or General Qasem Soleimani. So I think they will beat him with that stick for his second term. Although President Trump has an open ambition to be the Nobel Peace Prize next year, and many countries have supported him, and Iraq, as a normal country, also could have supported his bid. But I think this is played into Iraqi politics to undermine his chances.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you very much indeed for being so generous with your time. Hoshyar Zebari.
Most welcome,
Thank you very much, sir.
Most welcome. Most welcome.